In 1963, a team of archaeologists from the University of Chicago and Istanbul University walked across a low hill in southeastern Turkey. The locals called it Göbekli Tepe, Potbelly Hill, a gentle mound rising from the plains, scattered with broken limestone slabs. The archaeologists looked at the fragments, noted a likely medieval cemetery, and moved on. Nothing here, they decided. For 30 years, the hill kept its secret. Then, in 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt read that old survey report. Something about it bothered him. He had spent years excavating Stone Age sites in the region, and he knew what medieval graves looked like. The description didn't fit. He drove out to the hill. He walked the slope, and within minutes, he understood what the men before him had missed. The broken slabs weren't gravestones. They were the tops of enormous prehistoric pillars, and the hill itself wasn't a hill at all. It was a buried complex. All of it. Built, used, and then, for reasons no one has ever explained, deliberately filled in and hidden. Schmidt would later say he had two choices that day: walk away and tell no one, or spend the rest of his life digging. He dug. What came out of that hill would force historians to rewrite the story of civilization itself. Let's put this place in time, because this is where Göbekli Tepe stops being an archaeological site and becomes a problem. The pyramids of Giza are about 4,500 years old. Stonehenge, 5,000. The first cities of Mesopotamia, 6,000. Göbekli Tepe is nearly 12,000 years old. It is older than the pyramids by 7,000 years. Older than writing. Older than pottery. Older than the wheel. Older than metal tools. And here is the part that should be impossible. It is older than farming. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were hunter-gatherers. They had no crops, no herds, no villages worth the name. They lived in small bands, following game and wild plants across the hills. Everything we thought we knew said that people like this do not build monuments. They built one anyway. Rings of massive T-shaped limestone pillars, arranged in circles up to 20 meters across. The tallest pillars stand 5.5 meters high and weigh as much as 10 tons. Each ring is centered on a pair of even larger twin pillars, facing each other like partners in a conversation that ended 100 centuries ago. The pillars were quarried from the surrounding limestone plateau with flint tools. Not metal, flint. Stone cutting stone, ton after ton, dragged hundreds of meters and raised upright by people who, according to every textbook written before 1995, should not have been able to organize anything larger than a hunting party. Ground-penetrating radar has mapped what still sleeps under the surface. The excavated enclosures, the ones that made headlines around the world, are roughly 5% of the site. 5%. After 30 years of digging, the pillars are not blank. That is what separates Göbekli Tepe from almost everything else in the Stone Age. They are covered in carvings, high reliefs, cut into the limestone with extraordinary control. Foxes with bared teeth. Snakes flowing down the pillar faces in braided streams. Scorpions. Wild boars. Cranes with strange, almost human legs. And vultures. Always the vultures. One pillar, the archaeologists call it Pillar 43, the vulture stone, is carved edge to edge with a scene no one has decoded. A vulture spreads its wings above a headless human figure. A scorpion waits below. Above them, a row of strange shapes that some researchers read as bags or baskets or something else entirely. Some see a myth we will never recover. Some see a map of the sky. A few researchers have argued the carvings record a comet impact, a theory most archaeologists reject, but which refuses to die. The truth is simpler and stranger. We don't know. The people who carved these images left no writing, because writing would not exist for another 6,000 years. Whatever story the pillars tell, They tell it in a language whose last speaker died before the first field was ever planted. And the T-shaped pillars themselves? Look closer and they resolve into figures. Long arms carved down their sides, hands meeting over the belly, belts, loincloths of fox skin. The pillars are people, giant, faceless people standing in silent circles under the earth. Who they were meant to be, gods, ancestors, the honored dead, is anyone's guess. For a century, the story of civilization ran in one direction. First came farming. Farming made surplus. Surplus made villages, villages made cities, cities made temples. Religion was a luxury, something people could afford only after their bellies were full. Gobekli Tepe broke that story. Here, the monument comes first. The builders were still hunters when they raised the pillars. The wild gazelle bones scattered through the site, tens of thousands of them, are the remains of enormous feasts. People came here, possibly from 100 kilometers in every direction, to gather, to feast, and to build. And that gathering may be the engine that changed everything. Feeding hundreds of workers, season after season, pushes wild resources to their limit. Some researchers point out that einkorn wheat, the ancestor of all domesticated wheat on Earth, was first tamed in the hills of Karakedag, within sight of Göbekli Tepe, at almost exactly this time, which raises a possibility that would have sounded absurd a generation ago. We used to think temples were a product of agriculture. At Gobekli Tepe, it may be the other way around. People didn't start farming and then build a temple. They built a temple, and the effort of serving it pushed them into farming. Klaus Schmidt put it in one sentence: first came the temple, then the city. If he was right, then this hill in southeastern Turkey is not just an old ruin. It is the trigger, the place where the hunting life ended and everything we call history began. The fields, the villages, the kings, the taxes, all of it downstream from a circle of carved stones. Not everyone agrees. Newer excavations suggest people may have lived at the site year-round, that it was less a pure temple and more a settlement with a sacred heart. The debate is very much alive, but no one disputes the dates. Whatever Gobekli Tepe was, it existed before farming, and that alone rewrites the first chapter of the human story. And then, around 8,200 BC, after more than 1,000 years of use, the people of Gobekli Tepe did something that archaeologists still argue about. They buried it. Not abandoned, buried. The enclosures were filled in, deliberately packed with rubble, flint chips, and animal bones, hundreds of cubic meters of debris carried in basket by basket until the pillars vanished and the circles became a hill. Think about that decision. The pillars had stood for 40 generations. Whatever they meant, whole lifetimes had been spent serving them. And then, one era, that meaning ended, and instead of simply walking away, the people closed the place down. Sealed it. The way you might close the eyes of the dead. Why? Some archaeologists see ritual, a formal burial for a sacred place whose time had passed. Some see practicality, a platform for new construction. Some newer studies suggest part of the fill may have slid down from higher ground over time, and that the truth is a mixture of both. But whatever the mechanism, the effect was the same. The buried pillars were protected from rain, from frost, from the slow sandpaper of wind. While Stonehenge weathered and the pyramids were stripped for building stone, Gobekli Tepe slept in the dark, almost perfectly preserved. The burial that ended the site is the only reason we have it. And there is one more twist. The oldest circles, the deepest, the earliest, are the largest and the most finely made. The later enclosures, built centuries afterward, are smaller, rougher, as if the skill was already fading, as if the builders were copying something they no longer fully understood. We are used to stories of rise and progress. Gobekli Tepe may be the opposite. The earliest thing is the masterpiece, and everything after it is an echo. Klaus Schmidt died in 2014. 20 years into the excavation of the site, he refused to walk away from. He never saw more than a fraction of it uncovered. In 2018, Göbekli Tepe became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Today, a great roof spans the enclosures, and visitors from every continent stand at the railings, looking down at pillars that were ancient before the first word was ever written. 95% of the site is still underground. Under the wheat fields on the slopes, radar shows more circles, more pillars, waiting in the same darkness that kept them safe for 10,000 years. The archaeologists are in no hurry. Digging destroys, and the hill has taught everyone the value of patience. So we are left with a place that answers one question and asks 100. We know now that people did not need farms, kings, or cities to attempt something monumental. They needed only a reason, and whatever that reason was, it was powerful enough to gather scattered bands of hunters and turn them into builders. We just don't know what it was. Every pillar at Gobekli Tepe was raised by someone whose name, language, and gods have vanished so completely that we cannot even guess at them. What survived is the work itself. The circles, the carvings, the faceless giants with their hands folded over their bellies, standing exactly where they were left when the lights of that world went out. 12,000 years ago, on a hill in Anatolia, someone looked at the horizon and decided to build something that did not need to exist. Everything else, every city, every temple, every monument raised since, may just be the long echo of that decision.